Bleach is not the kind of manga and anime series that's typically trying to scare you, but it does have its moments of horror. That's one of the things I liked about it, especially early on. Because of its subject matter involving the ghostly supernatural parts of the world, we sometimes mix in flashes of terrifying things, but a lot of those things are relatively tame in the grand scheme. Hollows devouring people is a creepy, gruesome concept and sometimes depicted to frighten the viewer, but Bleach isn't really focused on startling images or excessive gore or haunting ideas most of the time. Its biggest spooky aesthetics kind of faded after Ichigo started to gain a better understanding of this supernatural world, which thematically makes a lot of sense. Ichigo is more used to his new life, so things around him seem less scary. The horror was mostly replaced with a focus on fantasy world building and clashing power sets and spectacular battles. Still, the use of terror never fully went away. It would just be weaved into the narrative, often in ways that aren't blatantly frightening until you really start to think about them. Because Bleach's greatest weapon sometimes has been psychological horror, whether it's an unknown part of you that feels like a complete stranger encroaching inside of your mind, whispering in your ear that it's going to take control of your body, or it's the mind-bending illusions that Aizen concocts with his hypnosis, where you may stab your best friend and not even realize it until your sword is already plunged into their chest. Hell, even Mayori's defeat of Xyloporo was incredibly unsettling to really think about. To really fully imagine being in that position is scary. But this is a whole other level that we've never seen before in Bleach. So let's get into this, cousins, because you all have some explaining to do. Before we get into what we really need to talk about, I do have to bring up that Ichigo revealing his completed Fullbring is shown to us, so we get to see what it's like in its true form, and I love it. Considering Brook is my favorite One Piece character, and how much I love King Bargain, it's no secret that I love a good skeletal aesthetic, and this is no exception. It's super badass looking and so very different from any of his Soul Reaper forms. It feels properly separate, focused on the human part of Ichigo, rather than the spiritual Soul Reaper side of him. And I love the badge becoming like a part of the sword too. It's great. Awesome design, love it a lot. As for naming this Fullbring, that's honestly a tough one, especially on the spot, but I'm gonna give it a try. You could do Bone Badge, Soul Pass, Skeleton License. I don't know, I'm sure there's a lot of bone jokes I can make, and if I think of any better ones, I'm going to put them on the screen right now. Anyway, but yeah, a lot of the training we've gone through with Execution is fully explained. How his power was dormant and they stirred it awake through the badge, which was kind of along the same lines as I was thinking was happening, that the badge was kind of acting as a catalyst. The biggest takeaway, though, is that now that his Fullbring is complete, his Soul Reaper powers will slowly return and fuse with his Fullbring, giving him powers greater than a regular Soul Reaper, and that just sounds very, very handy. Love it. But we don't get much time to kind of celebrate Ichigo's progress though. No, because when he gets home, it turns out one of his cousins is paying a visit to the family. And you gotta love cousin characters. They're so often close, but also just far enough out of the main group that they bring a new flavor to the cast, so a lot of stories will introduce a cousin of some kind down the road, and this is Bleach's turn. So yeah, Ichigo's sisters are happy that their cousin is over and waiting for Ichigo on the couch. So let's talk about Ichigo's cousin, Shu. You know, his cousin, Shukaro Tsukishima. Oh, you didn't know that Ichigo and Tsukishima were cousins? Of course they are. They always have been, and Ichigo's sisters are so excited to see their favorite relative. After all, they haven't seen him since Grandpa's memorial service years ago, remember? What a touching reunion to finally have this family come together where they can just hang out and enjoy each other's company. And it's such a nice thing that Tite Kubo introduced to the story, that we're gonna get to spend some more time with Ichigo's family, you know? Yeah. What the f***? This right here is one of the most terrifying things in Bleach, and it hit me like a freight train, just like it did Ichigo. Here is our main villain, a proven enemy who has hurt Ichigo's friends, fought against him, threatened him, and he's in a place that's supposed to be a sanctuary, a safe house, a family home, just chilling on the couch and being treated like he belongs there, like he's related to them, like he's family. And Tsukishima apparently didn't break in. He didn't sneak in. He's welcomed by Karin and Yuzu. And of course they'd let him inside. He's their cousin, right? At least as far as they know. And there's the rub. Of course he's not Ichigo's cousin. He never has been. At least not to Ichigo, and to us as the readers. This isn't how we know him. This isn't how we've been introduced to him up until now. And Ichigo reacts exactly as you would if your archenemy was suddenly in your house brainwashing your little sisters. He throttles him, ready to kick his ass, but Ichigo has to deal with his sisters trying to pry him off because they can't understand why he's attacking their beloved cousin Shu. They legitimately believe that Tsukishima is their cousin. They don't recognize him as the trespasser that he is because he hasn't just violated their home, but has violated their actual pass. More on that later, because what the hell? It's hard to know when Tsukishima first got to them with his sword. He could have just done it when he came to the house, or maybe he prepared for this a while ago and they just wouldn't activate until they saw their quote-unquote cousin. After all, when he cut Orihime and she suddenly saw him as a friend, he said he left his mark and they didn't have to do anything else to her. I assume it's the same thing here potentially, where he could have left his mark on them a while ago, but just the image of a guy cutting two like tween girls with a sword to mess with their lives and their realities is a whole other level of creepy. And it's just such a personal attack on Ichigo, you know, meant to hit him where it hurts, harming the people that he cares about and doing it in a way where they don't even realize they've been harmed. They have no idea that their lives have been twisted by a monster. And it only gets worse. When the doorbell rings and Ichigo's high school buddies come in, having been invited by cousin Shu, and they're all so excited to see him, it really just keeps creeping me out, thinking that Tsukishima apparently went to each of them one by one and put them under the spell of his Fullbring, infiltrating Ichigo's life so directly, implanting himself in it as if he's been there the whole time. It's especially alarming that between his sisters and his high school friends, these are the most vulnerable people in Ichigo's life, the ones that need his protection more than anyone else, and he'd been unable to keep Tsukishima away from them, hadn't even known that they'd been victimized by him. Outside of some spiritual awareness from some, these people were never threats to Tsukishima. They weren't involved, but he makes them involved, using them as unwitting puppets to get at Ichigo. This is part of what makes Tsukishima such an effective villain. I love when villains in stories and movies and TV shows kind of insert themselves into someone's life in order to try to manipulate them, you know, like they pretend to be a friend, or they lie about their purpose, or they pretend to be a mentor, and it turns out they've got ulterior motives and they're lying the whole time. But this is kind of like a bit of a reversal on that, where it's not just he's coming into Ichigo's life, he's coming into everyone else's life and then kind of gaslighting Ichigo and then convincing all of them through supernatural powerful means that he is a friend and they can't see otherwise, and Ichigo's the only one that knows he's an enemy. It's just great stuff. It feels very invasive and personal, and I love it. And I love how twisted it is. It's so scary to imagine this happening to people around you, you know? And it doesn't help that Tsukishima doesn't drop the act, not even for a second. He just pretends that he's innocent cousin Shu, trying to get the gang together to hang out on a Saturday night. He sticks in character with so much glee, relishing every additional revelation of who he has brainwashed. Like, he took his sweet time calling Orihime and Chad, and I don't blame Ichigo for hitting him, but again, that just makes everyone think that Ichigo is the one that's out of his mind and that he's attacking cousin Shu. How dare he? Cousin Shu's the most friendly, kind, amazing guy that we all know and love, right? putting myself in that position, how would I react if everyone I knew was acting this way, making me believe that I was crazy? Not like intentionally, but instead they really believed that I was out of my mind for not thinking this guy was my cousin. Maybe I would go crazy because it's everyone you love all treating you as if you've completely lost it. Like, how do you not question your reality a little at that point when you're the only one that seems to be making any sense and the only one that remembers things a certain way? It's crazy. In this situation, attacking Tsukishima does more harm than good. From their perspective, from the perspective of the people that he loves, Ichigo is out of line and attacking someone that they are very friendly with. From their perspective, Ichigo is acting irrationally and violently, scaring them because they don't understand what's really going on. They really think Ichigo is just lashing out and being violent and scary and having all of this take place in his home. You know, it feels like a domestic issue, like an abusive, like imagine going to your friend's house and like you're friends with their cousin too, and they just start attacking the cousin in front of you and you don't understand why, and they're just saying all these things that don't make any sense. It's scary to think about how alone Ichigo is in all of this, because he's kind of living in a separate reality than everyone he knows. And Tatsuki, having been established as one of Ichigo's oldest friends, it makes it even worse to have her there acting like Cousin Shu has always been around. Like, she's known Ichigo since they were little kids, and even she's saying that Cousin Shu is a part of their lives. Ichigo can't fight his friends. He can't hurt them. It goes against everything that he's fought for. His belief in protecting his loved ones is completely flipped on him, where now his loved ones think they need protection from him because he seems like he's attacking someone for no reason. And how could he physically assault sweet Cousin Shu? Aren't they all supposed to be friends? This whole thing is just crazy, and I love it so much. It's really right up my alley, and I'm loving every second of it as I was reading it. Oh my god, fantastic. And the anime episode that depicted this whole confrontation amplified everything even more, and it does a lot with these chapters that I'll get into, but the anime adaptation just added something a little extra between the music and just hearing the hurt and the confusion. It just amplified everything. It was phenomenal. So let's talk about Tsukishima's powers now that these chapters and episodes gave a clearer understanding of them, but even then, it's hard to fully comprehend them actually. We got an explanation, but I'm still trying to figure it all out really. After what happened with Orihime, my initial thought was that Tsukishima could like change how he is seen by someone, like making someone see him as a friend when he was a stranger, or if he was an enemy. And that was kind of correct, at least on the right track, but it's more than what I was thinking. Even as I was reading the first part of this, I thought he was just altering and tweaking people's actual memories, placing himself in those memories so it's like he was there the whole time. But it actually goes beyond that, doesn't it? He's physically placing himself inside of these people's pasts, right? Like he was actually there. At least that's what my understanding of it was, even though it's still, as I'm talking, hard to fully wrap my head around that. But he specifically says that it's not like messing with their memories. So if he's not planting false memories, then his sword is cutting into the past itself, into time, but specifically his victim's history and what happened to them. As far as Ichigo's friends and family know, Cousin Shu is real, and he's always been a part of their lives because he actually has been. I'm not entirely sure how this works exactly, because if he's literally rewriting history and changing the past, how do his changes only affect the people he's cut and not others around them? Usually when people time travel, and they're seen by other people back in the past, it affects those people too. Wouldn't him being around back then be something that Ichigo would have a recollection of now too? How can he affect one person's past without changing the people that were also around them in those moments? It's crazy. So it's not like he's personally stepping back through time in a traditional time travel sense. His changes are targeted and only affect the people that he's cut. Is it like he's retroactively creating a bunch of timelines where Ichigo is still on the one that he's been on, but the people that got cut have been living on their own timelines that are only now converging back with Ichigo's? Is this making any sense? Does time travel travel makes sense ever? I don't know, but that's kind of what I was thinking. But my brain is mush, and time travel tends to sometimes really get to me anyway. But that's kind of how it feels, that he's kind of created branch timelines that are only now intersecting with Ichigo's. I don't know. My brain is mush. It's absolute mush. All I know is that it's worse than if they were like mind controlled to turn on Ichigo. They're not mindless thralls that are like possessed. His friends legitimately and wholeheartedly believe that Tsukishima is their friend and don't want him to be hurt and can't understand why Ichigo's attacking him. They're also genuinely still concerned about Ichigo, and they don't know any better about what to actually be concerned about. They still love him and care about him and are horrified and confused and thinking that they know what reality is when the truth isn't what they believe. But maybe it is because their pasts have been literally changed. I don't know. It's crazy. Again, to the people that Tsukishima has changed, these altered pasts are real. They happened. They have recollections of them. They went through those things with their own eyes and have vivid memories of it. There's something so wrong about that you lived your life without ever realizing that one person in your life wasn't actually supposed to be there and forced their way in. It's crazy. Last video, I talked about how experience can give someone like real power, but what if your experiences were given to you by someone manipulating your life? What if they were experiences you were never meant to have until someone manipulated it so they happen? All for the sake of changing your life and changing your own story. I rewatched my initial theory on Tsukishima, and I got so close when I said he's changing the role he plays in the story of someone's life. I just didn't take it far enough. But the bookmark being his Fullbring makes complete sense. He's putting himself into different parts of someone's story. If this was just manipulating individual memories, that would be one thing and one kind of horror, but him actually changing the past for someone seems crazy overpowered, right? Like, is this the most powerful ability in the series we've seen so far? It just seems even crazier than Orihime's rejection powers, but also kind of similar in some ways, like a super specified reality alteration ability. And it's honestly more similar than I was thinking, because like her power can specifically reject a physical phenomena from having taken place, and it's targeted to a specific person. Tsukishima is also just affecting one person and placing himself in their past. He's not rejecting what happened so much as changing what happened to begin with. I don't know if that makes sense, but there's kind of a weird similarity there, which maybe could make sense since they're both, Fullbringers. Maybe there is a connection between their powers and how they're able to alter and change things that have happened. This power is baffling, it's scary. As you can probably tell, it's hard to comprehend a little bit. I think I love it. It's super scary, super powerful, horrifying. Ugh, great. It's so good. Back to what these powers are causing though. Kubo does such a great job, particularly with Ichigo's expressions, to really convey the descent into terrified paranoia and starting to really lose a grip on reality and who he can trust. The panic is all over his face in every panel, and it makes complete sense that he would just run. What else could he do? His friends and sisters are compromised, but where is he even running to? His work boss, Ikumi, seems like a good option. She's not that close to him and like on the periphery of his social life. Surely Tsukishima wouldn't have bothered with her. Surprise! He's gotten to her too. Of course she knows Cousin Shu. Who doesn't? He's a great guy. It's made clear that there is nowhere safe, that every aspect of Ichigo's life has been infiltrated and violated, and there's nothing he can do about it but try to get away from it. It's really a terrible position to be in, and a scary one too, to have everyone you loved suddenly believing that your enemy is someone they're close with, and they think you're the bad guy for not sharing their fond memories of your fake cousin. It's real psychological horror. Amazing stuff. Okay, we need to take a brief aside from this absolutely terrifying chain of events for a minute so I can talk to you all directly. I've been informed by my trusted Bleach-loving friend Henry, who, come to think of it, may have just been inserted into my past through a Fullbring bookmark, and he let me know that there's something that's apparently been in my video comments for a while now, and he was kind enough to provide screenshots. I started avoiding looking at my comments on the first time I'm reading series for fear of spoilers, but so I just see the ones that he sends me that might be of interest, but he kept these from me until right now. I'll read a couple of these comments, but he sent a whole lot of them, like a whole lot. Crazy. Here we go. Can't wait for the next arc. I hope they did my uncle justice. Finally, he's going to meet our favorite uncle. So clearly, there's a running gag here about Tsukishima. I can't wait for you to eventually meet my favorite cousin. I'll remind you, these are from before the reveal that I just recently read. So people have been sending these in the comments. So another. Why do you have a photo of my best friend Tsukishima? I don't know. He's just showing up. Hey, I recognize him. He was my roommate in college and my best man at my wedding. That's a great best man to have. He's loyal, he's determined, he shows up to have social gatherings. I'm sure he was a great best man. He's always well dressed. He's kind of got like this sort of formal attire, at least partially happening. He was probably great. Did he give a good speech? Oh, hey, it's Tsukishima. Love that guy. He helped me ride a bike for the first time when I was a kid. He helped me achieve a bench press of 215 pounds. He was there during my high school graduation. Shoot, he even helped me file my taxes. Good man, good man. He's always been there. He's like my mentor father figure. That's fantastic. It's incredible how kind he is to have helped you with so many amazing things. That's wild. Tsukishima finally steps into the main villain role after being our supporting friend with us from Chapter 1. You hate to see it. It is sad, isn't it? He's been through so much, and suddenly he's now being portrayed as a villain, even though he's been with us and our characters the whole series, and I just failed to mention him. That's on me. Ah yes, Uncle Tsukishima. Real talk, guys. He helped me learn how to be a great person. We're getting a lot of that. He's very helpful to a lot of people. Man, I remember when Mr. Tsukishima helped Ichigo when he first got his powers. So nostalgic to see him again for this arc. You know what? I think I remember that too. Like, he was there more than Rukia, wasn't he? Like, she barely helped. I love it when a side character gets their moment to shine. I hope Chad and Orihime will get their highlights as well soon, since they've been around almost as long as Tsukishima. Yeah, you know, he was there a few pages before them. They're there very early on, but no, Tsukishima's there, what, page 1, wasn't he? Like, he was helping Ichigo fight off those guys desecrating that tribute to that dead girl, right? That was Tsukishima? Shout out to my neighbor Tsukishima. He taught me how to ride a bike and drove me to school once when I was a kid. That's very nice of him. It's just, these are all great things. I can't believe Agamotto forgot about who Tsukishima is. He's been part of the crew since day one. I know, I'm sorry. I don't know how I just kept not talking about him. He was crucial in saving Rukia, and there's no way we could have rescued Orihime or beaten Aizen without his help. It hasn't even been that long. I know, he was there and I just kept not talking about him. It's weird. Him being with us since the beginning, then turning evil really hit me hard. You know, I'm struggling to think that he could even be evil. It's gotta be Ichigo that's being evil, right? Tsukishima's too nice of a dude to turn evil. He's been with us for so long, how can he be a villain? Exactly, Tsukishima's a great friend. Tsukishima literally was there for me when my dad died. He better not say anything about my best friend. Look, I'm trying to defend him right now. Just look at what I've just been talking about. He's done so much for our community, for the Bleach fandom, for the story, for our characters. Tsukishima, I think, might be just a good dude. I will not accept any slander against my uncle. I'm trying hard not to slander him, because how could I? He's just so great. That's it for these. Do you see what I mean? You all are twisted, very twisted, but you're also amazing. Incredible work. The fact that these Tsukishima jokes were in my past the whole time and I didn't even notice it, it's a little too real, guys. A little too real, but incredible trolling. I would have had no idea what you were talking about at first, so well done. My hat's off to you. Incredible work. Really bringing the story into 4D territory here. It's getting real. What is reality, am I right? Okay, all of this is just so intense and brilliant. Ichigo's home has been tarnished, his workplace isn't safe, and now Ginjo shows up telling him that the members of Execution have also all been attacked by Tsukishima, so Ichigo is really running out of any potential places to at least hide, but thankfully Ginjo brings him to a super secret warehouse not even his teammates know about, which gives him and Ichigo a chance to breathe. Ginjo hasn't been altered, and it seems like he might be the only one, so it's really down to him and Ichigo as the last sane people in their social circles, the only ones that remember the past as it originally was, besides Tsukishima himself, obviously. There's a small bit of comfort with Ginjo still remembering things as they were. It's good to have at least one other person that can help anchor Ichigo to his sanity, like at least Ginjo is proof that Ichigo hasn't completely lost his mind like everyone else is treating him like he has. There's an interesting idea which you'd naturally think about in this situation, which I definitely did. Can what happened to Ichigo's friends be reversed, or are their pasts now irreparably going to be altered, and would killing Tsukishima change things back to how they were? The real scary part is that we aren't given confirmation that it would actually fix anything, but killing Tsukishima may be the best hope they have, maybe the only hope they have, but just the possibility that Ichigo and Ginjo would always be hated by their friends for killing Tsukishima gives the whole thing a lot of tension, because this potential victory wouldn't really be a win in the long run if defeating Tsukishima means all of the people that now love him would be furious and vengeful for the rest of their lives. It's just another scary thing on top of all. But even a safe house that no one is supposed to know about isn't a safe house at all, as Yukio tracked Ginjo with like a Galaga ship, so his powers can bring things out of his game into the real world after all. So he's even more powerful than I thought last video. He can't just pull things into the game, he actually can bring things out of the game. And things just get creepier when Yukio brings them to a spooky looking house at the edge of a spooky forest. I originally stopped my reading at this point and thought that there was enough to discuss already for a video, and going to a new location felt like a natural stopping point. This clearly would have been a solid length, chock full of information video, but I decided to keep reading because I just couldn't stop. So rather than hold off for next video, I included these thoughts here because they still fall under the umbrella of what I'm getting at in this video, and that's how utterly horrifying everything going on is. So let's get into some of what happens next as we enter Tsukishima's House of Horrors. This is an interesting place to set this next part of the arc. It's this very conspicuous, probably expensive, kind of haunted house that looks abandoned and isolated at first, but it's filled with a bunch of familiar faces, all happy and oblivious. It's kind of like Kubo is conveying that Stepford suburban nightmare of everyone acting all happy and neighborly and totally fine, while everything is actually much scarier beneath the surface. Like every single one of these people cheering for Ichigo has unknowingly been subjected to life-altering manipulation, but in their minds, there's no war in Ba Sing Se, there's no problem with Cousin Shu. He's fine, he's great, he's super nice, look at this great house he invited us to. But there has got to be a level of Tsukishima's control that's more than just going back and putting himself in someone's past. Like, it's more than him just being there. Because of how uncomfortably joyful all of these people are. If it was just that Cousin Shu was part of their lives and their friend, and there was no other form of control going on, these people would still be pretty normal overall and not creepily happy. If they were totally fine besides, having an extra friend in their life, they would still be actually concerned right now about Ichigo after what happened at the house. But instead, they're all telling him that he needs to apologize over and over in this terrifying way. There's a clear dominance of their minds here. Tsukishima has some level of control over how they're behaving, I feel like, right? This is more than just like, oh, we're friends with him too, and he's been with us the whole time. There's something deeper going on with them. Maybe his power requires a certain level of control over the people that he, infiltrated. This whole sequence, especially in the anime, of all of Ichigo's loved ones telling him to apologize to Tsukishima in this chilling, echoing chorus of voices was so effective. They kind of lose their individuality along with their own initiative, turning into nothing more than mouthpieces for Tsukishima. I think this really pulls back the curtain of he's in control, even more than he seems. When we see that the other members of Execution are there too, also working as Tsukishima's friends now, there's a moment that I think gives us maybe some insight into what Tsukishima might actually want. Up until this point, his objective has kind of been a mystery. We know he's targeting Ichigo specifically, but we didn't know much else beyond that. Here, as Execution surrounds Ichigo like vultures, it's mentioned that Ichigo is quote-unquote brimming with energy, which obviously makes me think that Tsukishima wanted Ichigo to activate his Fullbring, and by extension get his Soul Reaper powers back, probably for the same reason Ginjo did, so they could perform the Fullbring transference thing to a Soul Reaper like Ichigo. It has to be connected to what happened the first time Fullbringers gave their powers to a Soul Reaper, and when Tsukishima killed the ones that gave their powers, as well as the Soul Reaper that received them. We still haven't learned why Tsukishima did that back then, or what he got out of it, so maybe something went wrong at the time, or maybe it wasn't enough and he needs someone to do it again. But thankfully, Ginjo shows up to help, keeps most of the other guests out of the room, and then reminds Ichigo to show them what he can do now, to unleash his Fullbring. But even when Ichigo tries to put a stop to this for good and activates it, his loved ones get in the way as we see Chad and Orihime come to Tsukishima's defense. Ichigo just can't fight this guy without people he cares about helping him instead. The tough part with Chad and Orihime compared to the others is that they can actually sort of fight back and really defend Tsukishima, but just like the others, they think they've been friends with him forever. When we know, because we saw both of these people get stabbed, we know the moment when that changed. We know the moment when Orihime switched from her normal life to thinking of Tsukishima as a friend. And this right here was one of the anime's shining moments as far as changes go. It expanded on a couple of panels in a more effective way. The manga panels showed the shadow of Tsukishima at past events, but the anime went even further and more blatant with it, and I think it worked for the best. It really drove home the utter ridiculousness of this power. It showed footage of Tsukishima running beside everyone in Hueco Mundo or helping fight Aizen, and it just made me laugh over how demented this whole plot is. This is what multiple characters in the series remember now. This is history for them. We only think it's out of place and funny because we're still in reality with Ichigo. It's just crazy, and I love it, and I think answers a question I had in an earlier video about how much does Tsukishima know. He knows so much about Ichigo's past because after stabbing people like Orihime, he's literally apparently been there. He was there when Ichigo fought Aizen. He saw Ichigo fight Ukiura. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. If retconning something was a superpower or gaslighting was a superpower, this would be it. This is a supercharged way of convincing someone that their reality isn't true and what they know is wrong and that history is false. It's messed up but fascinating. And it reminded me a bit of Sentry's introduction into Marvel Comics, where it was revealed that he had actually fought alongside all of the Marvel heroes since the very beginning, since the Stan Lee days, but everyone had just forgotten about him. But he was there. Only this is a much more malicious version of that, where the past is actively being changed to include a character that wasn't there. If I haven't made it clear yet, what makes all of this so terrifying is just how it's breaking Ichigo down little by little, person by person. I don't know that Ichigo has ever been pushed this far mentally before. At every turn, he's getting hit with incredibly intense psychological warfare. He's been put through a lot in Bleach, a lot, but this feels so much worse than anything else. Yes, even getting holes punched through him by Ukiura. Again, just look at Ichigo's eyes in these chapters. Look how Kubo perfectly shows him being at his absolute breaking point. How he's seeing his enemy completely turn his life upside down. The fear that's portrayed in his eyes, perfectly encapsulates the feeling of helplessness that he's going through. We've seen Ichigo surprised before. We've seen him horrified. We've never seen him like this, where almost every panel is him oozing with panic and fear and confusion. And the worst part is that Ichigo's whole purpose for living is to protect his friends and loved ones. That's the core of his character, which I've talked about plenty of times before. That was why he wanted his powers back. He wanted to be able to help them and not feel useless. So of course he's gonna break down completely when he realizes that all of that no longer matters. All of his effort to regain his abilities means nothing if he has no loved ones to protect. That was the whole reason for why he took on Soul Reaper abilities to begin with in the very beginning of the series. And now it's all been taken away from him by the scariest villain in Bleach. There's not much scarier than not being able to trust the people that are your loved ones, or having them work against your best interests, especially when it's against their will, thinking they're doing what's best for you while they're blind to what the real threat is, not even knowing that they're working against you, to start to not even be able to trust your own knowledge and your own history because you're one of the only ones that remembers anything as it's supposed to be. That's where all of this horror really comes from. It's about being brainwashed, being gaslit into doubting your own life, your own memories, your own reality. It's just a mess. Not narratively, just a horrific mess for Ichigo. But this might be my favorite part of Bleach so far. It's at least up there. Truly, truly disturbing stuff, and I was enthralled by every second of it. I loved the focus on horror and the tension-filled paranoia. It was all perfectly executed. In some ways, this part of the story, a lot of this Lost Agent arc, feels like a completely different story in some respects. Like it's obviously still Bleach, but these events feel so unique, and I mean that in the best way. I love the variety of different kinds of stories we're getting here, and how this shift toward a darker, more cerebral threat is absolutely perfect for what the story needs right now. It needs to be focused on Ichigo's growth, his mindset, and his evolution. Him gaining a new power only to have his purpose for that upgrade stripped away, it's really a whole new level of suffering he's being put through in these chapters and episodes. And I just have no idea how we're getting out of this. Maybe Ichigo can get through to everyone and remind them of what's real, but the hold Tsukishima has on their past seems pretty unbreakable at the moment. I do have a small hope that whatever Urahara and Isshin are doing will save the day, but I literally would not be surprised if they show up and Tsukishima already got to them. I could see Kubo doing that. Considering what Tsukishima knows, which is apparently like everything, I think he would want them compromised and off the board right away. I could see Kubo driving that knife a little deeper, and maybe what Urahara and Isshin are doing is gonna benefit Tsukishima, actually, but we'll see. But yeah, this whole part of Bleach was absolutely incredible and chilling, and it felt like I was watching a horror thriller about brainwashing or body snatching or someone whose whole world has suddenly gone insane, and that's gotta be how Ichigo feels. This was like a disturbing nightmare, and as I'm sure you can tell, one of my favorite parts of Bleach, no question. So that'll do it for this video, as Ichigo tries to stop a man that took his reason for fighting from him, and hopefully defeating him can change things back, but there's no guarantee, and that might be the scariest part of all. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I do have a long Q&A video coming that I recorded with my wife, and I got a character ranking to look forward to as well. And of course, the next first time reading Bleach, I still want to do a reaction to the video game trailers, but I gotta figure that out still. Yeah, so a lot of that, but yeah, I'll definitely see you next weekend, hopefully, for the next first time reading, where hopefully Ichigo can beat down on his cousin once and for all. Again, thank you so much for watching. I know this is turning out to be a long video, but there was a lot to cover. If you enjoyed it, please comment, like, subscribe. If you want to support the channel, please become a member. I really appreciate it. I hope you all have a great day. Take care. Bye.